All right, good afternoon. Is this on? All right, good afternoon. It is a beautiful day to stand with public housing residents. And we need to be standing with public housing residents. They have been taking the lead here, and we're standing with them as allies and supporters, as we have been for years, to demand that they get the respect, the leadership, the repairs, and the oversight that they, like everyone, deserve. So I'm New York City Council member Brad Lander, and I'm proud to be out here today with Ed Tyree, president of the Gowanus Houses Tenants Association, and with Valerie Bell, the president of the Wyckoff Gardens Tenants Association. We'll be joined shortly by City Council member Steve Levin. We're joined by so many allies from Gowanus Neighborhood Coalition for Justice, some residents of both Gowanus Houses and Wyckoff Gardens, a very long list of community-based organizations who make up Gowanus Neighborhood Coalition for Justice, who you'll hear from in a little bit. We have Mike Frasiopa from Community Board 6.
All right, Mike.
Yeah. We got some city council candidates. I see both Elizabeth Adams and Lincoln Ressler here. And we'll introduce. And Ben Solitaire is standing there and tricking me, but that's because he's helping organize the event. So, all right. Big thank you to Ben and to Julia Erman from my team for organizing us today. So, from the very beginning of the conversations about the Gowanus neighborhood rezoning, and that is now a decade ago, the community has said the number one priority, there's a lot of priorities, and we can talk about others, many priorities around environmental issues, around inclusion, around infrastructure. But the number one issue that the community has been demanding be made front and center is that there must be, at the very beginning, as part of any rezoning or any deal, significant investments in the tens and tens of millions of dollars to fix what has long been neglected here in Gowanus Houses and in Wyckoff Gardens. Because you can't have a conversation about equity. You can't have a conversation about making it a neighborhood where people are included if the folks who have been here for years and decades, and especially if the folks who are the low-income residents in the district, the Black and Latino families, if they are living in homes that the city has neglected for decades. It is completely unacceptable. We won't stand for it. We've made it the number one priority and the number one bottom line that the community has had. Upfront funding to fix the homes of our neighbors as part of any conversation. So we have been very frustrated through all those years, and I really want to be honest about the frustration, because on almost every other issue, the city has been willing to have a real dialogue with us on the conversation about how to make sure CSOs don't keep flowing into the canal, on the conversation about what affordability there will be on housing on other publicly and privately owned sites, on the conversation about whether and how there'll be enough school seats or enough transit investments or a mix of uses to preserve the light industry in the neighborhood. On every one of those issues, the city has at least been willing to talk. And yet on the number one issue, and in so many ways like the most fundamental human rights issue, the city has said, not yet. We're not ready to have that conversation. We can take room for that. At the beginning, and I'm sorry to go back a little, but I do think the history is important here. Well, at the beginning of this conversation, the city said, you know what, we're not even going to talk about NYCHA as part of rezonings. Those are two different things at City Hall. And some of you will remember we had those 5 working groups. How many people participated in one of those 5 working groups? There were 5 working groups that came up with recommendations, and for most of them, the city said, we'll work on it together. But by the one that said, invest in NYCHA, the city at that time, a few years ago, put a red X and said, public housing and rezonings are separate things. And we said, well, they're not going to be in the Gowanus rezoning. And the Gowanus rezoning, if there's going to be one, it must make substantial investments that are satisfactory to the tenant leaders and the residents of NYCHA. And so then at a later point, the city said, well, all right, I guess we'll have to have that conversation. And then we said, when? Great, time to have that conversation. We want to have that conversation before certification. But here we are, past certification, and the city has not come forward with a concrete and clear plan about how it is going to meet the needs of our neighbors in Gowanus houses and Wyckoff Gardens. And now we are approaching the moment when Community Board 6 is going to make its recommendation. 2 weeks ago, we had an unprecedented public hearing that people could participate in online or at the Old Stone House, and we heard a lot of things. But really, the number one thing I heard was still, where is the funding for NYCHA? So, and we have, we asked City Hall to meet with Val and Ed, to meet with the elected presidents of their tenants associations and all of the residents of Gowanus houses and Wyckoff Gardens, to pay them real respect, to respect elected leadership, to respect public housing tenants, and say to them, here's our plan, let's start that negotiation. But unfortunately, as the community board vote approaches, there is not yet a concrete offer on the table. So, let's boo for that. Now, you guys know that sometimes in these rezonings, I think it won't shock you to learn that there is a dialogue between City Hall and City Council members who represent the neighborhood. And I think in a lot of cases, this is what makes people suspicious about rezonings, because they know there's one conversation going on in public and there's another conversation going on behind closed doors, and things play out through the ULURP process, and then at the last minute at City Hall, presto, lo and behold, something gets announced. But that's not the right way to have a conversation about the future of our neighborhoods. It's sure not the right way to have a conversation about the future of Wyckoff Gardens and Gowanus houses when there's elected tenant leadership and so many residents who live here. So Councilmember Levin and I thought it was very important to come forward and be clear and transparent, let you know about the conversations that City Hall has had with us, and make sure everybody knows that that's a matter of public record, where things stand today, and be very clear that we are standing together about what our demands are and where they're going to go.
We appreciate it.
So, what I, we put out in the press release, and this I need my numbers for, because City Hall came to us and told us that they would be interested in funding the following potential 3 funding packages. I'm going to put packages in quote, because as you'll see, these are the things that people essentially need to live in their homes. They're not funding packages. They're essential quality of life items. All right, so package A, we are told, which would equate to $52 million, is to repair the bathrooms in Gowanus houses. But package A, because repairing the bathrooms in Gowanus houses, they say would cost $52 million, includes no work at all at Wyckoff Gardens. Package B does include some work at Wyckoff Gardens. If you feel like you're playing a board game here, you might be right. Package B, which we are told would be $40 million, is to replace the windows in Gowanus houses, and also to replace the windows and repair the heat at Wyckoff Gardens.
No. That's insulting.
And then there's package C. Package C, which we are told also would total $40 million, is to upgrade the electrical and fix the elevators at Gowanus houses, and to also upgrade the electrical at Wyckoff Gardens. But let's be clear, it's not appropriate to ask any tenant to choose between mold-free bathrooms, functioning elevators, and safe electrical outlets in their homes. Is that right? And that's what we're here to say. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and then we're going to turn it over to Val and Ed. But I guess I want to make a couple of just points here about what's being on offer. So first, we know a few things. The city's opening offer, right? The city's opening offer in their conversation is $40 to $52 million. They have said we're ready to put $40 to $52 million on the table. But just as important, they have acknowledged, because those 3 separate things which everyone needs, that there is at least $132 million worth of work which must be done in Gowanus and Wyckoff Gardens. And Steve and I are here today to stand with Al and Ed and all of you and say, we are gonna fight like hell to make sure that if a rezoning moves forward, it includes every penny that these developments need and deserve. And my last point before I turn it over is, let's also be clear that what is unacceptable about these packages is not just that they ask residents to choose between the windows and adequate electrical and working elevators and functional bathrooms, which is bad enough by itself, but that it is not centering and honoring the leadership of residents themselves in the conversation. And we won't be satisfied until there's adequate funding to meet the needs and there's adequate respect, leadership, and oversight, so tenants are the ones in the driver's seat.
That's right.
All right?
Yeah.
Won't back down. Won't back down. We're standing with you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Councilmember Steve Levin.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Brad. Good afternoon, everybody. So Brad really got into the meat and potatoes of it, but I just want to let you all know that, you know, what the residents of this development at Gowanus and Wyckoff Gardens have to endure on a regular basis. I mean, every winter, every summer, every week. We're talking about elevators going out. We're talking about mold that doesn't get fixed for years. We're talking about every single winter. Appliances don't work. Electricity goes out. Heat goes out. Water goes out. That's because the landlord of this development, which is the City of New York, which is the New York City Housing Authority, and his HUD is the federal government, has neglected to keep up these buildings. These buildings they're not brand new buildings. These buildings have been around for 70 years. They need basic maintenance. If you don't take care of your building, it will fall into a state of disrepair. That is death and taxes and that. I mean, we know what happens. And time and again, year after year after year, we've seen a disinvestment from the New York City Housing Authority, from our federal partners, from our state partners, and the city to do anything about it. There's a boiler here at Gowanus Houses that needs to be replaced. The governor held up the allocation of that money for like 5 years. Unacceptable. And he held it up because of a petty political dispute with the mayor. So year after year, residents at Gowanus, year after year after year, don't have heat in the winter. But they're there to collect the rent every month. They're there to collect the rent every month. And they'll take tenants to court to collect that rent. Oh yeah. This is a basic responsibility of this city. It's a basic responsibility of our federal government, and they have not held up their end of the bargain. Their end of the bargain. This is a basic compact between residents and the management of their buildings. You pay rent, you're entitled to a decent place to live. And I live in a private building, and when my heat goes out, I'm allowed to go on rent strike. But when the heat goes out at NYCHA, rent strike. No. So what we are saying today is, if we're going to go forward with a rezoning in this neighborhood, that's going to create a lot of wealth for this city, a lot of tax revenue for this city over the years, there has to be an investment in the affordable housing that's in this neighborhood now, and that's Wyckoff and Gowanus. And there needs to be accountability. There needs to be safeguards in place. Who remembers when we were standing out here, 2017, when the mayor committed to reopening this community center? Is it open yet? No. Maybe. There needs to be accountability in the framework of this rezone. That means ongoing accountability. Now, Brad has said it before, he and I won't be in office in 7 months. The residents of these developments and the leadership of these developments need to have an accountability measure so they are overseeing the process moving forward. So that over the next however many years it takes to do this work, that this actually is overseen and has the input of residents. But as Brad said, and he went through the lists, you know, we need all of these things. We need all of these things. We cannot be in a situation where leaky windows are replaced, but the mold still persists, or the plumbing behind the plaster is still broken and dripping down. We can't fix everything about NYCHA because NYCHA as a system is messed up. But we can fix these developments and the physical needs in these developments. It is the basic responsibility of government. This is our opportunity to do it now. And we need to stand firm and say we are not going along unless these needs are addressed once and for all now. Thank you, everybody. Okay, right.
Before you rezone, fix our homes. Before you rezone, fix our homes. Before you rezone.
And I'm very, very proud to introduce next a man who has really done an amazing job of leading the residents of this development for the last 5-6 years. And this gives his heart and soul and his time and everything that he has to make sure that the residents of this development of Gowanus are getting what they deserve. The Resident Association President, Ed Tyree.
Thank you. Y'all hear me?
Yeah, now we go.
Okay. I like all the things that were said out here today, but one of the things that was said, and can you hear me now? All right, I usually have a big mouth. I got a mask on today. What it is that first everything starts with respect. That's the bottom line. You know, we're not getting respect from HUD. We're not getting respect from. I'm trying to. Oh, can you hear me now? All right, then. All right, now I sound like Barry White now. Okay. All right, okay. The whole thing, like I said, everything starts with respect.
Echo.
And we're not. Echo now? Oh. Everything starts with respect, and that's the first thing that we're not getting, you know, because information that we should have, we don't have, because it's not shared with us, number one. Number two, we have HUD regulations that help us help y'all, that's not being recognized by anybody, you know, so we can't even give y'all the help that we can give y'all because nobody's appreciating and respecting those HUD regulations. And I was even told one time that I was, they said, our egos don't allow us to respect that. And I said, oh, really? But the other thing I'm getting back to, get back to the residents again too. About 6 months ago, we had a gas outage in 417 Baltic. We had an outage in 241 Hoyt Street with no gas. And we had an A line in 182 that had no gas, okay? Now, they talking about all this other stuff now, but think about this here. Those gas lines are expiration time is 20 years past expiration time. So that means eventually you're going to have a couple more buildings that's going to go out. Now, what are they going to do when those buildings go out? People got to stay without, they got to have the little cheap hot place that they had for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months.
I got one right now.
Yeah, well, that's not the way you want to live, and that's not the way you should live. But the whole thing I think people have to understand is that in order for you to get things, you got to make noise too. You know, because no leader, I don't care who he is or she is or what title they have, can't do it by themselves. You know, they need an army behind them to get it done. You know, and if you don't have an army behind you, it won't get done, because after a while they just look at you and laugh, but they just saying, you know, you by yourself and you really don't count. And they tell you that even when you have an army behind you, but the best thing about an army, the army's prepared to fight. You know, but if you don't have an army, they can't fight for you. So my biggest thing is this here is that, you know, we have to learn to work together. This is my cut buddy over here, Val. That's my cut buddy over here. You know, I let everybody know that's my cut buddy. You know? That's my cut buddy right there. And me and Val make them very uncomfortable when we go on those booths, those Zoom meetings. When they looking to see us sitting together, uh-oh, here come the two troublemakers. But you know what? We don't mind making trouble, you know? That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. You know? But I'm not trying to talk so long, but what I just want to make y'all understand is that, you know, there's a lot of things that need to get done. And there's a lot of things that can be done. Like this garbage they put down here, fix the toilet bowl, I can fix it. So get a window, I can wash my window. I can do things like that. But my whole thing is what they're trying to do is use some trickery. Have you say you want those things. But no, they're going to they tell you want these things here. And then when you get them and other things break down, they say, we gave you what you wanted. You know? Don't give me what I want. Don't give me what I want, thank you. Give me what I need. That's the bottom line. Give me what I need and we be all right. But they don't, absolutely. Yeah, but they're making us live under conditions they don't live under. You know, and they wouldn't live under that there, and they wouldn't allow that to happen to them. But I'm going to say this in closing that, you know, as long as I'm here, as long as Val's here, that's going to be my cup buddy. If anybody got a problem with that, that's on them.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming out. Thank you, GNCJ, for fighting for white folk and Gowanus. Y'all get me right. I got a big mouth. I really don't need the mic. But it all starts at home. The residents really do need to come out and be a part of it. Yes. We have to fight for what we will not. I'm saying white folk will not be the hole in the donut anymore. Hey! That's right. Because me and Ed got this with the help of City Council. So whoever's coming in office, be ready. That's right. Because we coming. That's right. So we put out an APB. But yeah, we have to stand up for what we believe. We don't have to live like this. We don't have to let them treat us like we don't exist. There's been a lot of meetings and me and Ed has not been at them. In order to make a decision, you have to come back to us. Yes. Let us sit at the table. I always say, if we're not all eating steak, then we're not eating. That's right. So I'm not eating nobody. I want no hot dog and hamburger. Exactly. I want a steak. That's right. And I want to eat it with everybody. Everybody has the same meal. No one's left out. And I'm not going to hold y'all up because I was starving. About NYCHA. So thank everyone for coming out and supporting. And the fight is not over. It's just begun. Right. The real one.
All right, so let's hear it for our Public Housing Tenant Association, and for standing up strong. We're going to hear from just a couple other people. I know it's in the hot sun, and we want to make sure that we're centering public housing resident leadership today. But we do want to hear from two other groups, from the Gowanus Neighborhood Coalition for Justice and from Community Board 6. So let's start there, and then we'll hear from Mike first and then GNCJ. Folks know where this stands. Obviously, we're in the process now of evaluating the rezoning. And I want to give props to Mike and Community Board 6 for the hearing that they organized 2 weeks ago. That made it possible for people to come out and have their voices heard. And are really considering the wide range of issues, because there are so many issues that we have to pay attention to, because we want a bright, inclusive, sustainable, vibrant future for Gowanus and this whole area, and that takes broad issues of oversight and attention on everything from transportation to education to affordable housing to the right mix of uses, all the things that the board is looking at, and it means we are all showing up for our public housing neighbors. So please welcome Mike Frasiopa, District Manager, Community Board 6.
Yes, hi everyone, Mike Frasiopa, Community Board 6.
You have to keep it low.
Okay, sorry. Thanks. I think the points that Brad, Steve, Mrs. Tyree, Ms. Bell all made were excellent, and I couldn't add anything to it except for the fact that, so as Brad referred to, we had a hearing a couple of weeks ago, and on Thursday our land use committee votes. It's been in my newsletter, it's public, that we have a resolution. It's about 12 pages long, and while this is not an official position yet, I'll tell you this, I don't think that CB6 is in any way supportive of this unless we get the necessary funding.
Community sticks together.
Exactly. Absolutely. Karen is 100% right on that. And I think that without it, as Brad said, the city of City Hall is like saying, oh, you got to choose. No, I don't think the community should have to choose. These are basic facts of life. And if you're going to have a rezoning, if you're going to change that, something that should change in the positive would be that people have decent housing to live in. And I think that's something we can all agree on. And it's something that CB6 has pushed. I've been as district manager, I've been here for 3 years, maybe a couple of weeks ago. And one of the first letters we wrote was like a 20-page letter all about this. And we're still here. And it's unfortunate that the administration hasn't come around on it fully. But I mean, if they want our support, I don't think it's there without that full funding. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. And we would not be, there's been a lot of talk today about bringing the community together, making sure we're all standing together behind a set of demands and priorities for this rezoning and for the future of our community. And the work that Gowanus Neighborhood Coalition for Justice has done to bring a very broad and diverse set of residents together across a lot of lines of difference. And let's be honest, our community is divided a lot of ways. We have public housing, and then we got, multi-million-dollar brownstones nearby. We have a community where lots and lots of folks are creative and artistic, but the means and access to the resources to turn that into production and business. We got folks whose main passion is the environment. We got folks whose main passion is affordable housing. We've got folks whose main passion is economic development and good jobs for our people. We've got folks who love the history and character of the neighborhood and want to strengthen and preserve it. And so it has not been easy to put a coalition together that has integrity, that makes real demands, that clarifies what its bottom lines are, that holds its elected officials accountable, because you better believe that Steve and I know we are being held accountable by the set of folks who are here today. So it's really true. It's really true. It's rare, and I think there's a lot of reasons people are skeptical about it. But I think those of us that have been in those rooms know it's true, and that as we move through the dialogue about the rezoning, it's going to stay true. Like then we are just in it arm in arm. So I want to give props in that to the work that's been done to build Gowanus Neighborhood Coalition for Justice. Monica Underwood and Karen Blondell are repping GNCJ here this morning.
Everybody, Miss Underwood, let's go.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I thank everyone for coming. My name is Monica Underwood. I am a community leader. I am also a loyal member of GNCJ. Okay. I live in White Fork Gardens, and we're in the Gowanus area. What I wanted to say to you today is, in this area, it's a lot of rich people, okay? But what you're not going to do is you're not going to come in our neighborhood and not fix up the local public housing. Okay? Not only is it unjust, okay? Because we demand equal rights, equal fairness, and we're going to get it. No matter whose door we have to knock down. We deserve basic human rights, okay? And as a GNCJ member, we want our demands. Our first demand is upfront capital funding. That's number one, okay? And then we want no CSO.
That's right.
Okay, we want that. And the third demand is accountability. Yes. Oversight. We want that. It's when you live in this neighborhood for a long time, and then we've seen the changes. We eat, live, and sleep this life. And it's a lot of systematic racism going on. But we want it fixed. We're not going to start backing down. We're not going to start fighting. So we're going to be in your face and in your ear. So get used to it, because we're coming back over and over.
All right, well
Thank
said,
you.
Monica.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. So behind me stands the Gowanus Neighborhood Coalition for Justice. This coalition is diverse. We have public housing residents out here today. We have business owners. We have the faith-based organizations, our churches. We have artists. We have everyday residents out here. And we even have community members from our neighborhood over, which is Red Hook. I actually live in Red Hook, but I support the full funding of Wyckoff and Gowanus houses. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because when you have an 80-block rezoning going on, feet away from them, where there's a possibility that developers will make money, we have to ensure that the public housing residents who spend 4 times the amount of time in public housing in New York City than they do anywhere in the United States. The average stay in public housing is 9 years. I personally have been in public housing for almost 40 years. That would have paid for a 15-year mortgage and a 30-year mortgage, okay? Why in the 30, 40 years I've been here have we not received any upgrades to our gas risers, to our waste traps, to our sewage lines? I don't even know if they come and clean the grease out the line. But what I'm saying is, it's gonna stop with this group right here. We will hold you accountable. Whether or not we get full funding, we want some money on the table now to start the repairs that we need. We know everything can't be done overnight, but we don't want you to offer us money that we can't see the manifestation of that money for 20 years. Like this community center behind me. This center has been closed for 20 years. They have put millions of dollars aside for this center, but it's still not open. That's unacceptable, okay? We just went through a pandemic. We need these centers open. We need the ventilation fixed in these buildings that have these lowers in the bathrooms. There was some work done here thanks to Sandy, but that's not enough. We have to come up with a plan that will stabilize and make these apartments decent for the residents to live in. Remember, these are the residents that came up from the South between 1917 and 1970. If you go and you look in the LaGuardia archives, you'll see Indians standing where I'm standing at right now. Okay? So do not dismiss public housing residents. They're taxpayers. They're community essential workers. They're on the ground, and they have to deal with every single thing that happens in this community. And though we have people who are rich, some people are rich in money, others are rich in spirit. We still need each other. We need each other, okay? And I appreciate the fact that this community, this part of Brooklyn, is becoming a model for the rest of the world, how we can find those social cohesive moments, whether it's coming back from Sandy, Hurricane Sandy, or bunkering down during a pandemic. I appreciate that we have enough ears in this community, and we have our council members. Whoever's coming in next, you better be doing, if you're gonna do something, it better be at a standard that Brad brought to the table or better. You better not come with nothing less. You better not come here talking one way and walking a different way. The one thing I can say about Brad, irregardless of how we fight in these meetings, because we do, right? Sometimes I say, damn, they're gonna fire me. You know, I can't take this anymore. But guess what? When you start a fight together, you end that fight together. So I'm saying we won't back down. Won't back down! Won't back down! Won't back down! Excellent speech, lady. Excellent.
right, let's hear it for everybody who's spoken up today. We have some reporters here, so we'll take questions, and if they're for Ed or Val, they can come back down. I don't know if you guys have questions.
The release says that there's going to be a tenant process to come up with priorities. What is that process?
Yeah, so the press release says that, so as we were talking with some of the resident leaders, with Ed and Val and others, these packages, you know, there's two problems. One, you can't ask people to choose between basic essentials, and two, it does not reflect a real dialogue with residents about what the essential things are that are needed in the building. So the residents are committed, and Steve and I are committed to joining together in partnership over the next weeks and months to have a real dialogue with residents that doesn't wait for NYCHA or City Hall to say, here's what they think is needed.